Hi, everyone. This is Lauren Baker. Thanks for attending our SEJ webinar today. This is Lauren, the founder of Search Engine Journal. With me today, I have a special partner, Patrick Reinhart from Conductor. Give you a chance to say hi, Patrick.
Hey, everyone. How you doing?
So we hope everyone's doing well and you're safe and sound and locked down wherever you may be. Today we're going to be going over a very topical presentation, the future of SEO, how to safeguard your brand in an unpredictable world. Before Patrick gets started, however, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping and give some people a chance to jump on who haven't yet. So Patrick's presentation should be about a good half an hour. During the course of the presentation, we'll be launching a couple of polls. It's really important that you take the time to respond to these polls as we launch them. Not only does it give us great information and data, but at the end of the day, it gives Patrick a way to kind of present to you, the audience, and learn more about you while he's presenting. Also, after he's done with his 30 minutes, we'll have a Q&A session. During the course of the webinar presentation, please feel free to write your questions in the question box that's provided via the GoToWebinar control panel. I'll then be consolidating and picking some of the best questions as they come in or that have come in to ask Patrick during our Q&A discussion. If you have any additional questions that come up during Q&A, please don't be shy, type them in as well. Also, we'll be monitoring the questions in the chat for anything that comes up during the course of the presentation itself. And that's basically everything. Patrick's Twitter handle is here on the bottom of the slides, as is our official hashtag, #SEJWebinar. So if you'd like to share on Twitter, LinkedIn, or your social media platform of choice, all the great information that you're learning and everyone is missing out on, please do. And I'd like to turn things over to you, Patrick from Conductor, and give you a chance to introduce yourself and get started.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Laura. Really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for joining. We have a lot of folks here today, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Just a little bit about me. I always ask, who is this guy? Why should I care about his opinion? So my name is Pat Reinhart. I am currently the VP of Digital Strategies at Conductor. I head up our customer success arm. I've been in SEO for 16 years, which dates me quite a bit, but you know, this is an industry that I love. It's a profession that I love, and I love talking about. And I love sharing my ideas, sharing my thoughts. So happy, you know, to be able to do that with you today. I am, of course, a Bitmoji enthusiast. For anyone who has seen me speak out at conferences, I love using Bitmoji because mine freakishly looks like me. At least that's what I've been telling it. So that's why you may or may not see some weird cartoons along the way. But today we are here to talk about something, you know, which is, of course, very topical to everyone. Because right now there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. I want to start this whole thing off by saying I hope everyone is safe at home. I hope your families are safe. Certainly, this is unprecedented times as you know, as we all deal with the pandemic, being trapped in our homes. But also, I feel very fortunate that I can still, you know, go to work every day and work in search, which has been, you know, has turned out to be a blessing during this. I'm happy to be able to, you know, be here and share all this with you today. But the interesting thing is that when we had first started talking about, you know, doing this webinar, of course, all of this was not happening. And you could also say that SEO is kind of always uncertain. You know, we always, like us as SEO strategists or folks who are in charge of SEO or have SEO on their plate, we kind of always live in this world of uncertainty because of Google changing, as we all know. Google's a giant math equation floating out in space that we really can't control, but it certainly can control us at times. So here I want to go through just some research that, you know, Conductor has put together in through the lens of the COVID crisis, just to kind of talk about what's happening in the world. I shifted focuses, you know, from my original intent with the presentation to now give people what they can do now, you know, given what's going on in the world. Of course, the changes in marketing. And with that, we're going to go into our first poll that Lauren is going to launch. We'd love to get everyone's feedback on this. So,
absolutely, Pat. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll right now. So, have you cut your media budget during this time? We try to get about 75 to 80% of you answering these polls. Like I said, it's a great time to give Pat some understanding of the audience. So please, have you cut your media budget during this time? Choice one, we have cut it slightly. We have cut it steeply. No, it will remain the same. We have actually increased it slightly, or we have increased it steeply. So Pat, we have about 52% of the crowd has voted thus far. Give everyone a final chance. I see a couple of you are mentioning that you don't have audio. Within the control panel, you have three options. One is computer audio, the second is phone call, and then the last is no audio. If you can't hear me telling you this doesn't really help right now, but if the audio is not 100%, please try to click the computer audio or phone call option. So we've had 63% of you have voted. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results. Pat, I'm not sure if you can see this, so I'm going to go ahead and read these from the top percentage down. 36% of the respondents say that their media budget has remained the same during this time. 29%, we have two ties here. 29% of both responded that they have cut it slightly or they have cut it steeply. 6% have increased their budget slightly, and 1% has increased it steeply. I'm gonna go ahead and hide the results, and then back to you.
All right, very good. Interesting, a mixed bag of sorts, and not surprised. We have seen here at Conductor, we did a survey of a few hundred marketing folks at all levels or senior most senior levels. Just kind of asking what's happening with their budgets as well. And what we have found is that 65% of marketers have anticipated a decrease to their annual marketing budget, and 86% of marketers predict that their marketing goals will be harder to reach. That's not really surprising, I'm sure, to everybody with everything. And looking at the poll that we just did, not too far off from what we're saying, because when you think about it, like everyone that I've talked to is that, of course, decreased budgets are a huge concern because that comes along with staff reductions, with channel limitations, and also just the top perceived threat, which is overall performance. But the interesting thing is that of all the folks that we polled, previously, more than half of them believe that SEO is more important during this time. And I think for me, that is something that's very encouraging, looking into the future and how we can kind of look in at our companies and look into what we're doing now and the tasks that we're doing now and where we are focusing our efforts. Because I think SEO is one of those things that a lot of people, as I'm sure a lot of folks on the webinar know, it's kind of one of those things that gets overlooked a lot. And I think during these types of times, it's a great place where you can invest. And going even further, 35% of our respondents say that a reduction in marketing budget is their greatest concern, surrounding everything happening with COVID and their marketing performance. I mean, obviously, big numbers there. 58% of those respondents say, if they were faced with a global recession, that they will have to lower their budget. So everyone's seeing a trend here, of course. 47% of respondents say that the current situation will make the ability to achieve their annual marketing goals much more difficult. But again, on the other side, it's coming back to what can be done, what we'll be talking about. 63% of respondents say SEO will be more important during this time. And even going further, talking about the global recession, you see all these different things here. 58% will lower our budget, 29%, just to show you the full gamut of things that we were asking. But 31% said that they would specifically invest more in lower cost channels like SEO. And that's an interesting point because a lot of folks, like I said, are kind of paid search obsessed, I think. And when paid search goes away or marketing budgets get slashed, SEO is actually a very cost effective way to do marketing. Content SEO, very important, very, ways that you can, get through times like this. And that actually brings us to our next poll before we get into a couple of other stats. And Lauren, I'll let you take that.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and launch it right now. So, will SEO be more or less important during this time? It will decrease slightly. It will decrease steeply. No, it will remain the same. It will increase slightly, or it will increase steeply. So please take the chance, especially all of you SEO practitioners out there, to go ahead and vote right now. Pat, just to let you know, your sound has been going in and out a little bit during the past couple minutes of the presentation. If
Okay.
there's a way you can possibly adjust your microphone or something like that, not sure exactly why. It could just be with so much streaming and demand of these systems going on at the current time. That could be what's going on, but anything you could do to possibly get a better, I guess, reception on your end would be fantastic. But yeah, we have 63%, 64% of you have voted thus far. I'm going to give you a final countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and closing the poll.
Okay.
And sharing the results. So 49% of attendees say that SEO will increase steeply during this time. 35% it will increase slightly. 11% no, it will remain the same. And then 4% it will decrease slightly. Then 1% it will decrease steeply. So it looks like the vast majority, 80% plus, 84% are saying that there's definitely going to be an increase in the importance of SEO over this time. And back to you.
Okay, very good. And that's not surprising, right? And, a lot of folks, as, paid budgets, display budgets, and, media budgets get slashed, a lot of people are looking for what are other, low cost ways that we can, that we can invest in. And, for the most part, when we ask the same question, will be more or less important during this time, of our respondents, 20% said that no, it will remain the same. 3% said it would decrease slightly. 2%, only 2% said it would decrease greatly. And then as we go on, 34% said it would increase slightly, 29% said it would increase steeply, and then 12% say that they were unsure. But I think one of the interesting findings from this is that you see that SEO is either going to remain the same, which means people are going to continue to invest in it, but the majority of all the respondents that we had, like I said, which is a few hundred, said that it would increase slightly or increase steeply. So for us as SEO practitioners or folks who are in charge of SEO, that is very encouraging, of course, especially during this time. And, a big question that I've been getting, is, why should I care about, these numbers? I've talked about this with a lot of folks, a lot of different types of businesses. And, for the most part, they all ask me, it's like, is this, why should I care about SEO now? And, why should I do this? Why is this different than any other channel that I should cut, that I should slash? And I'm just going to go up on my soapbox for a few minutes and say that right now, search is more important than ever, especially in times like this. And not even just talking about, of course, what's going on in the world right now, but just in any type of uncertain times. Everyone has to remember that organic and content initiatives are always, quote unquote, on. You can, if you write content that's valuable to your customers, you're answering questions, you're creating things that are not just looking for right now, but you're thinking about things that will help the company and yourself in the future. That's really where you really start to win, digitally, in my opinion. It's something that gets ignored far too often, and it's one of those things that you can build something that will work for you even when you're asleep. Even when you're not spending money technically, because you can invest in SEO as you should, but ultimately it will continue to work for you. I always say that SEO is like a snowball rolling down a hill. Once you start that snowball rolling, it will continue to roll and get bigger and gain strength until it's big enough to knock a house down. And that's really how everyone should be viewing, this right now, is that, that this is one of the best ways that you can safeguard your brand, is by building a really solid content and SEO foundation. Of course, it's also easy to pivot and reprioritize, because that's what we do all the time, right? I mean, SEOs thrive on this. Like I said, I started doing SEO back in 2004, and a lot has happened since then. I was there for when Penguin first rolled out, and Panda, and all of the original policing of the algorithms. And I can tell you that it's one of those things where it taught me that no matter what gets thrown at me or my teams, that it helps you pivot, helps you learn, and it helps you, hey, something comes up, we can pivot, we can focus on this now, but always driving value, always creating something that is there as, bigger than bigger than the sum of its parts, right? It's something that's contributing to something that's larger. Another thing, especially these days, is that, people are home searching, and they're looking for answers and they're looking for help. And we can all create content that is there to help our customers, right? And it's one of those things where a lot of folks are scared to say things, and we'll get to that in a minute. But at the end of the day, right now, people are still looking for what your company does, what you do, and also want to learn more about it and want to be a bigger part of it. So that's something to take into account as well, is that we can all create content at all times to help our customers. Something that I mentioned before, SEO is one of the, if not the most cost-effective investment compared to about just every other digital channel. Think about it this way. Paid search, CPCs, continue to rise, right? CPCs are going to continue to go up and up and up. SEO, the investment should go up, but for the most part, it stays pretty even, right? You can continue to invest in technologies, you can invest in people, which you should as your campaigns grow. But for the most part, these things stay, like SEO is a lot more predictable and very cost effective, especially when you consider what it could potentially bring in for you if done right. And then for the other thing is that what we create now will help us in the long term. If you turn paid search off, it turns off, right? That faucet is off and it stops flowing, it stops sending revenue, stops sending leads, et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, when you create content, that will help you into the future, right? It'll keep working for you. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to continue to gain traffic, continue to send leads forever, or it's going to continue to increase and increase and increase. But again, snowball rolling down a hill. It helps make the entire thing bigger and better and stronger, and a lot of people think very near term, when right now, especially when budgets are getting slashed and things of that nature, if the folks that that thought about SEO and had them in place are probably having an easier time right now, depending, of course, on their business and vertical, being very sensitive to that, than folks who may not have invested up until this point. Because that's just what I'm hearing from the industry, is that a lot of companies ask me, like, hey, if I had invested this in a year ago, would I be in a better place? Of course, you can't guarantee that is true, but pretty confident that is certainly true. So the big question from there becomes, what do I do, right? What should I do in these times, or what should I be thinking about to avoid something else that could happen in the future, right? So when thinking about something that's that's very topical in the world right now, address what's happening, right? But don't be afraid not to address it. What I'm seeing a lot of companies do right now is, of course, everyone's putting out messaging as they should. They're telling their customers what's happening, what's going on, and you should create content that addresses what's going on. Like the graphs I just showed you, that's what Conductor did. We wanted to do something that that came out and said, here's what we believe the impact is going to be of this whole thing, right? We did a survey specifically to address that situation, and we put it out there because we wanted to give people our perspective on it, our thoughts on it, right? But the other side of that is that people start to say, well, maybe that's the only content I can create. Should I only address what's happening, or am I like evil for thinking another way or trying to do something else for my customers? Should I only talk about what's happening in the world? And I say that you should not be afraid to create content directly for your, with your customers, directly for your customers and trying to help your business, right? You're allowed to run your business. You're allowed to, continue to try and, have the economy running and things of that nature. You shouldn't feel guilty about that, but you have to be really careful about how you go about that, right? You have to be very careful with your messaging. We've seen, I'm sure a lot of people have on the webinar have different companies that they've seen that have probably made a few missteps here, right? And said, because the one thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to seem like you were trying to capitalize on what's happening. I've seen this a couple of times. Of course, I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to say anything about brands. That's not what this is about. But you have seen. I'm sure a lot of people have seen some missteps. I've seen some people. Some companies do some really great messaging about this while still being able to, while still being able to, create content to run their business. But I think what the big thing here is that you should definitely address what's happening in the world, but don't only address it, right? Don't be afraid not to address it. And I think that's where a lot of companies are in the middle right now. They're afraid that if they don't mention, as of time right now, the pandemic, that they are doing a disservice to people, or that that's going to blow back on their brand. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think people understand that, listen, as long as you put out messaging, here's what's happening, here's our perspective on it, here's what's happening with our business, so that they know how they can interact with you, then I think you're good. But you are also allowed to write content that will help you beyond this. We all kind of have to remember that this is a snapshot in time, and then we will go back to normal on the other side of this. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're heading towards it at a faster and faster rate as time goes on. So don't be afraid to create content for the future. Of course, that content can help you now as well. But if you feel like you've addressed what's happening in the world, well, then you don't have to only talk about that. You can move on and you can start creating content. But again, just be careful with how you're messaging and with the content you're creating. You don't want to seem like you are capitalizing on what's happening in the world. And the next thing that I kind of alluded to this before is, we use this analogy over at Conductor, and it's one thing that I think it really makes it simple to understand, that you really want to plant those trees now, right? So everyone that has been investing in SEO had planted those seeds that turned into trees, and has helped them help their sites kind of carry through this a little bit easier. Are the ones who are sitting in the shade. We say, if you plant trees, on sunny days, you're going to have shade, and there's always going to be sunny days ahead. And right now, we're in the middle of a very, very sunny day. And as we all know, SEO takes time, right? So the companies that invest into it, they have that engine. They have a very effective engine to keep traffic and leads and sales coming during downturns, regardless of what is the cause of the downturn. And I think that's something that everyone on the line should think about right now. Have you taken the time to invest in your content program, in your SEO program? Is that something that you believe is hurting you now? If you haven't, is it something that you think is, it's definitely helping you carry through times of downturn? That's something that we really want to, you really should be thinking about and having conversations with other people within your organization about, which we will get to in a couple of minutes. But think about that, like if you plant those trees, you plant the seeds that grow into trees now, or you did, months or years ago. Of course, those trees are going to help you weather those sunny days, because you're going to have more shade to sit underneath. Because right now, paid budgets are getting slashed, display budgets are getting slashed, media budgets of all types are getting slashed. But everyone that invested in SEO, even if you had to stop paying for SEO during this time, that work is still working for you. It's not a faucet that just turned off. And I think that's something that everyone should think about, that during downturns, these are the types of things that can help you get through them. And if you plan for them, they can really, they can be that, that life preserver that you can wrap around yourself and get through tough times. And this is, things, and this is not a surprise, companies that rely mainly on paid media are hurting right now, because of course, there isn't as much money to carry through, of course, depending on your vertical and on your business. But but you don't want to, everyone on the phone right now can be the person that helps your company not be that company. There's, of course, you need a blend of everything. I'm not down on paid search whatsoever. Just because I've been an SEO for 16 years, that doesn't mean that I am against working with other departments. Quite the opposite. But when downturns happen, budgets get slashed, paid search is usually the first place, because you can turn it off, right? And SEO is typically a low-cost investment, so that usually survives, or it's just it's decreased slightly. But if your company is relying solely on one channel to deliver leads, revenue, or the majority of it, and I see it day in and day out where people just rely on paid search, they call me like, hey, every year my budget's going up, CPCs are going through the roof. Yes, that investment is going to become more expensive year after year for the same exact keywords that you're bidding on right now, because CPCs rise, right? With organic search, you're really investing in either a mix of technology and people who are building that for you, and that's really a smart investment. And you need a mix. You need a mix of both. So companies that lean too heavily in paid, not having a good time right now. But for folks who had a mix or lean a little bit even heavier on SEO, probably again have more shade to get them through these sunnier days. And again, I just want to say, remember that this is a snapshot in time. There is another side to this, and you need to be planning for that. And SEO is a good way to plan for that, because if you plant those, let's say you hadn't planted the seeds. Let's say this is, SEO is just one of the things that you just started to invest in, or just thinking about investing in right now. For the most part, this is a good time to really take a step back and say, hey, is this the time that I start planting the trees? Is this the time that I start, I start that garden, so that those trees grow? Because I got to tell you that, of course, downturns are going to happen. This won't be the last one. God forbid that we ever have to go through something like this again. But, there will be economic downturns. There will be headwinds that your businesses face. And at the end of the day, SEO can help you, survive those. SEO can help you get through those tough days. And that's something to think about, is to plant those trees so that you have the shade for future days. And moving on from there, another thing that I still see rampant from other, within other companies is that, people don't talk to one another. Teams don't talk to one another. It sounds stupid. It sounds like, oh, of course I talk to XYZ. But you would be shocked by how many people who are handling SEO or organic or content do not talk to paid, social, IT, and tech, and of course, a lot of other folks within an organization. So if you own SEO, or you're working, and that's something that you feel like you're in a silo, that's something that you can break down right now, and you can start to help. You can start to help your company. You can start to help your business. For the most part, if you talk to paid folks, again, right now, a lot of people and a lot of different parts of your organization that maybe didn't want to talk to you before are very open to ideas. Very open to collaboration. Now, this has gotten better over time, where many people have broken down these silos, but I still see it rampant through a lot of organizations. Definitely go and talk to your paid search folks. They're figuring out a game, a plan of action right now. Do you have data that you think could help them out? Go show it to them, right? Do the same with your social folks. If you get those 3 channels working together, those are the companies that win big, right? Is when you have all the different types of groups working together. Social can help promote things, pieces of content that your content team has created, right? And speaking of content, if make sure that your content folks are looped into the process so that they're not just pumping stuff out. Again, another thing that we see a lot of content teams or companies just pumping content out for haphazardly, and not optimizing it, not thinking about what's the intent of the keywords that we're going after. What keywords should we be targeting here? So there's a lot there that you can do if you get all these people. And right now, during times like this, people are looking for ideas. People are very open to talking. 2 of the ones that we see the biggest, sticking points for SEO in general. One being IT and tech. Every company is very different in this. Some companies have IT and tech folks who are very SEO savvy. They get it. They want it. They want it to work. Others, it's the other side of the fence where it's an uphill battle to get anything, done. This is one of those times where, again, during downturns, people are very open to ideas. You should go and you should talk to them. You should say, hey, listen, I have this analysis that I did that I think if we implemented this, we could get a big return on this, and it could help us into the future. And I think that's something that a lot of people still don't think about. And then the big one. The big one is talking to executives. And this is the one that a lot of people probably have the hardest time with. And I can tell you from personal experience, and I'll show you why. This is a Bitmoji of my COO, Selena. I use it all the time to get her attention, and I've bugged her constantly since she joined about 2 years ago. And this is one of those things where I would just go in with an analysis or an idea, and I would sit with her and I would say, hey, Selena, like, what do you think about this idea that we could do? And that's actually served me throughout my career, is going in and finding executives at companies, especially my own, and sitting down and having a conversation. Executives are much more accessible than people think, and very willing, especially again in times of downturn, very willing to hear ideas if you have the data and you have the data to back it up and to provide to them. That's really what they're looking for. If I invest in X, what do you think I will get in Y? And so if you get that opportunity, or you identify, hey, listen, I think I could get in with my VP of XYZ, or my COO has been asking about XYZ. Go in with an analysis. Be prepared. Regardless of what your technology is, a lot of this data is publicly available. And if you have a good idea, depending on what technology you're using or what how you're pulling data back, that's definitely something that you should connect the dots with, is going and talking with your executives. I guarantee you they're all looking for ideas right now. And SEO is usually not top of their list. Why not go and try to make it on the top of their list, right? Even if, if you get, like, say, like, you're in the middle of an email chain, even just writing an email and saying, hey, listen, did this analysis, think that this could help us. Do you have 5 minutes that I could drop by and talk to you about it? I will guarantee you that you will get that meeting. You will get that audience, because everyone is looking for ideas of what to do right now. And this is something that's ignored for no reason, honestly, no reason. And this is something, again, that can help you into the future. This isn't just a right now thing. This is just a, hey, if we talk right now, we can do better, right? We can do better in the near term, but also in the long term, which is the main benefit of organic search, is that it keeps working for you. Kind of moving on from there to more tactical things. So something I like to do, like right now during times like this, it's one of those things where it gives you, people have time on their hands, right? A lot of people, who don't have the regular daily tasks. A lot of people are just thinking, like, what should I work on? A lot of our bolder projects got put on hold, because of budgets, or because of timing, and because of all this. This is where I always say this is time to experiment, to break stuff, try new things, and try new tools, right? So everyone has a list of things that they want to do, right? And we really wish that we could get to them. You get stuff that you have to get to, which is what you usually get to. Then you get things that are, things you wish you could get to, and then you have things you never get to. Maybe sometimes you get to the things you wish you get to, but there's always stuff at the bottom of the pile that you just never get to. And that's something where, this is a good time to do that, right? One of my big things, and I'll show you one that I've been messing around with in a couple of seconds, as we round this out, trying out new tools. I love trying out new tools, and there's a lot of great ones out there. So for me, and again, I'll go into this in a few minutes, one of the big things that I've been trying to figure out is how to sidestep CMSs and update basic, metadata elements, with JavaScript, right? There's a couple of technologies out there. I've been trying one out. It's called Rank Science. I'll get into in a minute. But if there's a problem that you've been trying to solve, now's the time to go find a tool that might help you do it, or go build it, right? Depending on if you know how to code, or you have access to people who know how to code. We luckily, of course, I work for a technology company, so I'm blessed with a team that is dedicated to helping me with automation. But go try build something. Go try the thing. Even if you break it, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Also, try out new processes. Going back to my last slide about talking to people. If and when you get the audience with those other teams, come with a process. Hey, it's like, this was a great conversation. I was thinking in the future, maybe we could do X, Y, and Z, moving forward, so that we can keep in contact. Come with the process. Try it out. See if it works. If it sucks, get rid of it. Try something else. Don't be afraid to try something. Don't be afraid to fail. Not to sound like a success rate, but that's really what it's about. And this is something that can help you guys out now, but help you into the future if you establish these things, before, because things will start to ramp up again, and things will start to get back to normal. So now's the time to try these things out. And again, this is where you can get a lot of buy-in, because people are looking to do things as well. Try to break something that currently works. This is something that I do accidentally every day, much to the dismay of my team. But for the most part, I'm never happy. You should never really be happy with just being stagnant and just being okay with how things are going, right? Even things that I know are working over a Conductor, I go in, I try to poke holes in, I throw wrenches in it. We throw ideas around. We're always evolving. We're always trying to make things better. Not crazy, not just be like, hey, we're going to change this whole thing on a dime just because we want to. But there's usually holes in everything. There's always room for improvement. Nothing is perfect, and nothing is ever going to be perfect. So look for things within your organization that you deem as imperfect, and go in and try to break it and try to make it work better. And that, again, these are the times that you have the time to do that. And this is the time that I would try to do. And one of the biggest things, that we all should be thinking about, try something that will make everyone's job easier, not just yours. A lot of time people build tools that helps them, that helps the individual. Think about your team, think about your organization. If you could build something that, if you're looking at this, if a new tool can help put a new process in place that helps you, your paid team, your content team, and your social team work together better, then that's great. I'll guarantee you can get the exec to pay, to ultimately invest in it down the line. But right now is the time to, to create those plans and create prototypes. I create prototypes of stuff all the time, whether it's service models, whether it's tools, things of that nature. Most of them never see the light of day. but the goal in mind with all of them is how can we automate things that we shouldn't have people doing? And that doesn't mean automating SEO. I mean automating data pulling, things that are done constantly. Every single person on this webinar has something that they do every single day that they probably hate doing that a machine could probably do. And it's not, you always need the human touch. You always need the human element in SEO. But there's a lot of data pulling, pivoting, visualizations and things like that that can be automated that will save you hours and hours and hours of time, weeks of time over the course of a year. And that's something that you also be thinking about right now. How can you do that? And for me, I like doing all of these things, right? So if you are sitting here listening to this, just saying like, you know what, I do have something. I pull this piece of data every 2 days. I hate doing that. I guarantee you there is a way that you can pull that, pivot it, visualize it completely automatically, right? And that's definitely something that can happen. And it's something that you should look into like tonight. And that's, if you take anything from that, do that. So for example, for me, of trying out, something new, again, back to my original point was I've been looking for a way that I could sidestep CMSs, right? Mainly because the biggest hurdle in SEO quite a bit is implementation. And a lot of times the problem with that is that it could be problems with tech. It could be just an unruly CMS that no one can really manage well. And so I, discovered, I've been trying out this tool called Rank Science. I'm not trying to sell you Rank Science. This is not advertisement for Rank Science. This is just a story. And here you have a page on Conductor.com, which is for Search on Tap, which is a podcast that that we do, or I guess we could say we did, and are planning on doing again in the future. But mainly, I'm using this page because I have access to it and I can change it. And for the most part, let's say I went into a customer and I said, hey, you should change your H1, and they're like, I can't change my H1. This is why. There's too many blockers. It takes too long. So this happens to me all the time. It's been happening for years. And so finally, I found this tool and I was just like, hey, listen, I want to edit this page, but I don't want to have to sign into the CMS. They're never going to let me in. And the cool thing is, and I hope this animated GIF works for you guys. It looks like it's working. As you can see here, you can click in to an element using their platform. It's just a JavaScript tag that you can put directly on the page, or you can put into Google Tag Manager. You see, you can click into the H1. It deploys to the page, and then it changes the H1 just like that. It deploys it automatically through JavaScript. Google crawls it. It shows up. It works. And I was like, holy crap! This is a cool little tool. And that started me down the road. That's just an example of testing something out and going down the road with something. It's been really interesting. But like things like that, this is going to help me. I took the time now because this is going to help me in the future, way into the future, with a lot of customers. This isn't just a right now thing. This is a long-term thing. And this is another way that brands get, you can help your brand, kind of get through different issues and things of that nature. And that's just an example. I know we want to get to questions, but another cool thing about this tool is that you can A/B test. Again, something that will help into the future and something that will, help safeguard everything, like as you move forward, will strengthen your SEO programs, right? If this is something that's a challenge for you. Again, this is just an example of a challenge. But at the end of the day, this is going to save me massive amounts of time to help my customers grow their SEO campaigns, which will help them through any dark time. Because again, it's all about planting the trees so that you have that shade to sit under on sunny days. So just to review what we've just went through, because I know we want to get to questions. So uncertain points of time are given. I mean, for the most part, and if you are a career SEO or been SEO for a while, you know that it's very up and down, very unpredictable. There are things that are going to be thrown at us all the time. This is just another one of those things. Which you always have to, regardless of that, you always have to be ready to pivot and change, right? Again, this should not be an issue. Google has made us, Google has prepared us for this, and it's something that we should go and help our companies, do better with this, using our expertise and using everything that we've been taught over the years, right? Right now, search is more important than ever. During these times, search is more important than ever, mainly, just because of the long-term value of it, but also because how cost-effective it is for companies. If you believe that your company should be investing more in SEO or investing, just taking a sliver of that huge paid budget and diverting it to SEO, go in with a plan and make it happen, right? You know, everyone in your org should know that. Go walk around if you think that you're not being heard and just tell people, show them a story, say, listen, this is why we need to invest in things like this. This would help us weather this storm, right? You also, of course, make sure that you're okay addressing the issues that are happening, but also be okay not addressing them. You are allowed to run your business. You are allowed to create content that isn't specific to what's happening in the world, but make sure that your messaging is on point and you don't look like you're capitalizing. We don't want to do that as well. Again, with the tree analogy, but I just want to hammer that home because I think it really hits home for me, is that, you know, those trees that are planted now will provide shade on future hot days, right? If you have been investing in SEO and content, it's definitely helping you weather that storm right now, and will continue to help you weather other storms that will undoubtedly happen in the future. And then, of course, try new things, right? That's something that I love to do. Right now is a good time to try new things. Everyone in your org is going to be open to new ideas, new things. Again, that will help you weather these storms. That will help you weather these storms. Getting people together, creating amazing content that helps your customers, that's valuable to your customers, not just clickbait. You know, really looking at what you're budgeting and saying, hey, am I budgeting properly for this? You know, if I had invested a decent amount in SEO a year ago, would I be in such a bad spot now? You know, think about those things. Take a step back and say, and rethink the way that you think about your marketing budgets. I think that, after this, SEO is going to start. A lot more conversations around SEO are going to be happening, with larger organizations and people, who are closer to the top. Just because I think that right now, especially based on the conversations that I've had, people are really starting to talk about it now. They're like, hey, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? Be the person that can be like, hey, listen, that's all good. Don't worry about it. But here's a plan. Here's what we can do. Here's how we can weather that next storm. And with that, just also one plug for Conductor. We are our conference every year, C3, is virtual this year, of course, with the COVID crisis going on. We're doing a really cool keynote with our CEO, Seth Bismertnik. We're going to be doing some 30 tips and tricks that myself and our chief evangelist are going to be going through. It's on Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. Would love for all y'all to come and register for it. It's always a good time. I'm sad it's not in person this year, but I'm happy that we're still being able to do something to bring value to the industry. And with that, I want to thank you guys all so much for taking the time. Again, hope you're all safe, in your homes, your families are safe, but also wanted to leave time for questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Patrick. That was a lot of information over a relatively short amount of time. So thanks for getting all of that in. Really got my gears turning. And just to let everyone know, and just to let you know, I dropped a link for the C3 registration page in the webinar chat. So I will say that C3 is probably one of the most talked about, tool-based conferences that I've heard of through the years from a quality perspective. So it's good to hear that you guys are continuing, albeit virtual, which actually means more people can attend and get a feel for the quality that Conductor brings to the table at the end of the day. So
absolutely,
it's good to see.
Absolutely.
All right, great. So I'm going to go ahead and get things started. First of all, I really like the analogy of SEO being the faucet that doesn't turn off. With a lot of the companies that I work with, one of the first things that they've done is they've either cut paid search spend, halted paid search spend, or first halted it and then kind of brought about the paid search spend that they knew they were still going to get a return on. And it's kind of like, for years I've always heard the argument that, oh, why should I invest in SEO? Because SEO is not really going to help me for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, when I can just do paid search in an instant, right? And now I'm hearing the flip side of that argument where, oh my gosh, we've turned off paid search, but the SEO that we invested in 2 years ago, a year ago, 5 years ago is still showing return, right? So it's been a very interesting scenario of showing the compound benefit of SEO over time, right? Investing in content, investing in solid site infrastructure, investing in building authority and outreach to sites and things like that, where when everything else is cut, we're still bringing in leads, and
Mhm.
it's some interesting scenarios, unfortunate yet interesting scenarios have popped up. One of those scenarios you talked about, and one of the important steps that you talked about, is right now the ability to build relationships and have discussions with folks that are working on different types of digital marketing throughout the company. So what are some examples of ways that paid search can help SEO? Specifically, what type of data can PPC teams share with SEOs that's beneficial for organic search at the end of the day?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and I think the easiest thing, or the best thing, excuse me, that they can do is give conversion data, right? Like what are the highest converting keywords, and then we can take that in and ingest it. I used to do this all the time when I worked at my old agency, and we can cross-reference that with where we rank, organically for those particular keywords. And then what we would do is that we would work with the paid team. We would, optimize the content that they were sending the paid traffic to, and help the quality score. But then when we would get, the ranking up to where we'd like it, say the first spot or two, they would actually start to adjust their bids down. Maybe they're not paying for the top spot; they're paying for the second or third spot, or these days even the fourth spot. And that would actually help save money over time. And that's something that was like this ongoing process, right? It's like, hey, every month we would take the monthly data that we had and said, hey, we're paying X amount for this for the top spot. We want to own that. We rank number 13, or maybe we rank number 36. For we're all over the place in between page 2 and 3 for these keywords, or maybe even worse. And then my team would go in and we would start to look at the content that we were creating, and we would update it to start to move more of those conversion keywords onto page 1. So ultimately they could go down on bids a little bit, save a little money, invest in other places that we weren't ranking well. And it was just this machine that just kept going, right? It was like a flywheel. One thing drove the other. And as time went on and we started to get more and more stuff on page 1, of course it takes time, but we were able to allocate funds very smartly for a lot of folks, because we were going in and we're like, okay, cool, we're at like number 2 for a lot of these terms, or maybe between 1 and 3 for a lot of these terms. Let's bid down to spot 2 or 3, save some money, and see if we can. And we'll do that in mass across this whole universe of keywords, and we wound up saving thousands of dollars that we would invest somewhere that we wanted, and we would just do the process over and over again. So that's I would try to adopt something similar to that.
Yeah, with one project, we've had what we've done is we've taken a lot of the long tail PPC terms and broken them into categories and compared where the client had traditionally done well in PPC, but we lacked in SEO.
Mm-hmm.
And based upon similar scenario with what you just spoke about, was we identified that content that we could be adding to the site, or different tweaks we can make to better rank for that long tail, when those long tail terms honestly just weren't a focus previously, right? So
Yep.
once you're not getting those leads come in, even if it's resulting in a couple of leads per week, at least now we can make a case to expand what's being done on the SEO side of things. And all industries are different, all experiences are different, but I will say that I have had the opportunity to pitch extra SEO work over this time because
Mm-hmm.
of the marketing budget not being utilized for paid and other things. But it's very difficult to pitch if you don't have a forecast. So the
Right.
ability to bring in that data and at least put together some sort of conservative forecast really does help on that front, either if you're on the agency side or in-house and you're looking for opportunity right now. So speaking of turning off paid, what are some of the results that you've seen with organic after paid search has been turned off, whether branded or unbranded paid search? And what can different SEOs expect? Because it's not typical to have Google Ads or whatnot turned off suddenly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's probably going to be a mixed bag, depending on what the campaign is and what the keywords are. Typically organic will trend with paid search. If you invest more and you're on page 1, you're taking up more real estate, you typically will see, because a lot of people will go through paid search just to find something, and then they won't buy, and then they'll come back and they'll Google what they, what either the brand was or the product was, and they'll find the website through organic. It's kind of that symbiotic relationship. But a lot of times, if you do like, let's say you cut paid down by like 80%, you're more than likely going to see a decrease in organic search just because that relationship has been lessened. Again, in some instances, you'll see organic search, soar. But in most cases, you're more than likely going to see it trend down or flatten out. Just because it doesn't have that extra support. It's all about how much real estate you can take up in an already very crowded SERP. But for the most part, that's what I've seen over the course of my career, is that usually they trend together, and when paid budgets are cut, again, depending what it is, you'll typically see it trend down, but it will pick up a good portion of the traffic that was lost by paid. It will replace it, but typically it's not going to complete. Like, organic's not just going to switch on and all of a sudden replace all the traffic we're getting in paid. That's not going to happen. So you're probably going to see it flattening. It'll take over some of it in some cases. It'll flatten in some cases, but usually they trend together.
Excellent. One thing I like to add too, and one thing I've noticed, is that some branded has dropped because when social campaigns are turned off or other ad campaigns, they boost interest of the search of the brand, right? So someone might have an outdoor campaign going on, or a TV campaign, or a Spotify campaign, or whatever it may be, which leads to more people searching for a term like SEJ, or a term like Conductor, or a term like Nike. And at the end of the day, if there's less people searching for branded, you're going to get less branded SEO traffic. So one thing I would definitely recommend during this time is parsing your branded queries and non-branded queries to identify any of those trends and match them up. Because then a lot of the time people ask, well, how can I show the value of SEO when people are just searching for the company name? Well, that's what people might be doing now. So you have a chance where, like, there's not all those ads all the time, and you can definitely show what the return is from an SEO perspective from branded right now. So next question. We are a month, 2 months into coronavirus, COVID-19. Is it still necessary to have alerts and disclaimers all over the site and all through the content, or can people move forward in a normal basis?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think right now you should still keep it there. We're not through this yet. I think that you don't want to confuse. Again, you don't want to confuse people that that things are back to normal. I think you still have to continue to have those warnings, like, especially local businesses, even when they're opening up, they may still have adjusted hours. So they should keep those on, right? They should still have the special announcement schema on their site and use that to their advantage for customers during this time, to make sure that everyone understands like what's happening. If your site is back up and running, I know a lot of retail sites have been shut down. If your site is still up and running, that's awesome, and you should of course continue, start to do business if you can. But I would definitely leave all the messaging up until there is some kind of announcement from the president, or I'm in New York, like if it was the governor of your state, that things are going to start to open up and start to go back to normal. I think we're still a couple of months away from that. But I would definitely, right now, I think we're still in the thick of it. I would definitely leave that messaging up.
Okay, excellent. Had a number of questions coming in about specific industries, so I'll address that right now. A lot of questions came in from folks in the travel or hotel industry. Are there anything they can do right now from an SEO perspective that's going to be helpful?
Yeah, great question. And I just want to say my heart goes out to folks who are in hospitality right now. I know a lot of folks who run who run sites for hotel chains and airlines. Heart goes out to you guys. Right now it's about maintaining the message. Making sure that if you let's say you run a hotel chain, for example, making sure people know. Know what the deal is, know what's happening. Unfortunately, like most of their, staff and things of that nature are furloughed at this point. Just making sure that people understand what's happening. That's number one, and what they can expect. if they interact with your brand. Number two goes back to some of my earlier slides. I think that there is, you should be working on, content that helps people, and answers questions. I know a lot of folks who are going through their chat support logs right now and looking for, for questions that people ask about the brand that they didn't address on their websites. Now's a good time to write that content, question and answer content. Go on Quora, go talk to go look through logs if you have them and see what questions are out there about your brand that you aren't answering, or even about the industry that you can create content. Again, it comes back to, remember that this is a snapshot in time and you're allowed to plan beyond this. And that's what, if I was in your shoes, that's what I would be planning on, making sure that the messaging is clear and concise about what's going on with the brand, but also building up that type of content, because I'm sure there's probably hundreds of questions that you guys can answer, and now's a good time to kind of create that content.
Absolutely. And another industry which popped up is also higher education and e-learning. So e-learning has really taken off. Anything that you expect from an SEO trend with e-learning or higher education over the next 3 to 6 months? And do you have any recommendations on how these industries can prepare for the fall semester?
Absolutely, yeah, great question. I think what they need to prepare for is, people all realizing that they really can do this from home. You can work from home, you can go to school from home. Of course, it's been trending upward over the years, but I think a lot of people understand that now, that they actually can. People who maybe have been, slow to adopt. For those brands, I think they should just be prepared for a lot more inquiries coming in. Again, going back to question and answer content, what types of questions would people ask about your e-learning solution? Have you answered those questions so that when people can make an educated decision to enroll with you or use your service? A lot of e-learning and tutoring that I've worked with over the years, that's one of the things that they always miss, or they hadn't thought of yet, or just hadn't gotten to yet. I don't even want to say hadn't thought of, just hadn't gotten to yet. I would get to that now. Make sure that when people come to your site, they can have as many questions as possible answered about how it works, what it is, what it does, what it addresses, accreditation, things of that nature. Make sure all those questions are answered on your site so that they're not getting it from an aggregator, things of that nature that you want to hear from the horse's mouth. That's where I would focus, is making sure that you're, being educators, that you are educating, the public on your offering and what it entails and why it will be valuable to them to work with you or to go to school, with your organization. So that's what I would be working on. That's what I would be preparing for. Just a slew of questions coming in, for the fall semester. Just like, hey, like during this whole thing, things were put on hold, or I was thinking about doing this now. That, the more that you can do that, it's less, cost per call will go down. The more you can answer on your website, the better it'll be for you in the long run.
Nice. Just adding to what you said about the restaurant part earlier, I ordered takeout the other day, and I had the restaurant call me and recommend which items I should heat up once delivered, and things like that, which I thought was really interesting, because they're actually it was spoken content, which blew me away.
Interesting.
But they're actually giving me tips to have a better experience with their food at home, which is probably going to lead to me being a longer term customer in the future, because I'm going to want to experience that experience within their establishment in the future. So just taking that extra step, and I wouldn't recommend calling all your customers and doing that, but that is a great guide or a piece of content to have on the site to send out via emails that link back to the blog, et cetera, et cetera. If you're a sushi restaurant, right? Send that on email to all your customers on how to prepare that dish traditionally at the table or whatever on the TV tray at home. It really helps. One question that came up is marketing budgets. We talked about this quite a bit during your presentation and communication throughout the board. Numbers are going to be completely off this quarter, right? Some industries are way down, some industries are way up. Once everything goes back to normal, that may change. How should people prepare for that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a black box right now. Q2, I think everyone knows that, Q2 is going to be where we're going to see things all over the place, and then hopefully rebound shortly after, as, testing becomes more widespread and things start to open. You're starting to see states open things over the next week. For this, to prepare for this, just make sure that take whatever you think your most sound budget is, or like your most conservative budget, and then plan for lower than that. And just do your best with that, because I think that none of us really know, and I'd be lying if I said that I had a crystal ball into what those are really going to look like. But I always prepare for the worst. I hope for everything to be okay, and then I'm ecstatic when things work even better than that. But I would, for Q2, I would prepare for the worst, probably even into Q3. It's going to be a bumpy road the next few months as far as budgets go, and then because companies are all going to have to reassess, they're all going to have to rebudget, and who knows what will happen on the other side of that. But again, you should always plan very conservatively, and just make sure that whatever you're working on, it's becoming more valuable. There's value for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, this is a time to think about your organization as a whole, not just your particular group. I think that would be a good message to drive with. But again, I don't think anyone knows exactly what's going to happen with budgets right now.
Agreed, 100%. We're all in this together, right? So
Absolutely.
it's good to hear. We've hit the 12 o'clock mark, or at least 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So we've hit the hour mark. Thank you so much for everything that you've had to share today. Thanks for everyone attending. Just to remind you all, we're going to be sending out a recording of the webinar along with a written recap. And Patrick, will you be able to share your slides?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll be sending them out.
So any great tips that you can use internally are all going to be available via Patrick's deck. Once we close the webinar today, there's going to be a short survey. If you could just take a minute or two to fill that out, that would be magnificent. It will help us really make these better and fine-tuned along the way. We've dropped quite an amount of links in the chat box to sign up for Conductor C3. I think we also dropped a link to Rank Science, which we're discussing through numerous slides on the presentation today. Looks like great stuff. And for any of the other questions that we've identified that you've been asking, we're going to send over to Patrick afterwards to have it answered, and they'll be available in the wrap up, which we'll be sending to all attendees in the next few days. Anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
Just for me, everyone, thank you so much for taking the time. Stay safe out there. I hope you are all healthy and getting through this. We'll get to the other side of this soon, hopefully. But thank you guys all so much for spending your very valuable time with me.
Thank you, Patrick, and thanks to the folks over at Conductor for making this happen. Just to let everyone know, our next SEG webinar will be held on May 6th. We'll be getting into paid search. Driving strategy at the C-suite level. So talking about things like preparing for those quarterly budgets and things like that on the paid search side of the house. With me personally, I learned as much via paid search content as I do via SEO, and I think they help each other. So please feel free to check that out. Patrick, again, it's been a treat. Looking forward to getting some more answers to these questions from you and having you again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Laura. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.